Welcome everybody to a OAC TV special segment on our Stop Weight Bias campaign. I'm James Zervios, OAC's Vice President of Marketing and Communications, and I'm so excited to be with everybody here today. Today is a very special segment. We're going to talk about the progress of the Stop Weight Bias campaign since we launched in early January of this year. We're also going to have a few different guests on as well to talk about their involvement with the campaign. We're going to talk to PSA actress Tanya Fitzpatrick, and we're going to talk to OAC member Faith Ann Newsom. And you're going to want to stick with us until the end of this segment because we have some very exciting and fun news to share with everybody about how you can get more involved in the Stop Weight Bias campaign. So with that, let's jump right in. Earlier this year, the Obesity Action Coalition launched the Stop Weight Bias campaign with a strong purpose to raise awareness, change public perceptions, push equality forward, and put a stop to weight bias. So far, we've had great success with people from all over the United States signing up to be part of the solution. Every month since its launch, this awareness campaign has been able to help people understand the harms of weight bias and give a voice to all those who have experienced it. One of the most unique components of the campaign are our PSAs, which are currently airing thousands of times throughout the United States. And today, we are very excited to have with us one of the actresses from the PSA, Tanya Fitzpatrick. Tanya is an actress and co-founder of World Footprint LLC, a socially conscious travel media platform. We wanted to talk with Tanya a little bit today and know about her experiences with filming the PSA and why she decided to be a part of this campaign. Before we have Tanya on, we'd like to take a look real quick at one of the PSAs that feature her, and then we'll have her right here in OAC Studios.
Millions of people deal with obesity and face unfair weight bias every day.
Don't you care what other people think?
You need to do something about your weight.
Weight bias is harmful, not helpful. Our words and actions matter. Learn more about weight bias and how to help end it. Visit stopweightbias.com.
Be part of the solution. Let's work together to stop weight bias today.
Welcome back. As you can see, the PSA featuring Tanya focused on a very important aspect of weight bias, and that's really the interpersonal relationships, especially in the family dynamic, and how that can often play a very, very serious role in weight bias and someone's journey with weight and health. And with that, let's welcome Tanya to OAC Studios. Hi Tanya, how are you? Welcome to OAC Studios.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm doing lovely. Very nice to see you, and thank you for this opportunity.
No, thank you. I know OAC has produced a lot of PSAs throughout our existence, but this is the first time that we've ever had the privilege of having one of the actors actually interviewed on OAC TV that was in one of our PSAs. So thank you very much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
So weight bias is a very specific topic, right? And I'm just kind of curious if you could tell us a little bit about your background and when this was offered to you to be in our PSA, what interested you to be a part of this?
To be honest, I answered a casting call. I do acting in Washington, D.C., which is where I'm based. And I just addressed a casting call, provided my photo and what have you. And when I found out about the PSA as we went through, it appealed to me because as a lawyer, I'm predisposed to social justice matters. And to me, this was, kind of advocating for social justice for the community.
That is a very strong component of the campaign. Again, weight bias is often what OAC refers to as one of the last acceptable forms of discrimination. We see it in pop culture, we see it in healthcare, we see it in employment, we see it in education. It just really runs rampant. And so I think the fact that you kind of see that angle of it is just so important as somebody who maybe hadn't known of the OAC, because I don't think you knew about the OAC before this PSA, correct? So
I didn't.
We were new to you.
That's correct.
Now, Tanya, in the PSA, obviously you're acting in that moment, and you're acting as someone who's experiencing weight bias from a family member, an immediate family member, actually. But in your personal life, have you actually ever dealt with weight bias?
Certainly, weight bias and a lot of other biases. I'm a woman of color. I'm a professional. I'm a lawyer. I'm a travel journalist who has, social justice in her DNA. And even with those credentials, I'm still discounted because of my size today. I'm no longer a size 4. And as a professional woman in a courtroom or on television, with the travel journalism work, certainly I know that I may not be taken as seriously as my credentials really dictate that I should. And growing up, some of the other biases I've experienced, of course, my gender, my color, and so there have been many instances that have held me back. And I think that's what really spurred me to going to law school and having that type of empowerment credential behind my back, and also the work that we do as travel journalists in making sure that people of all colors, sizes, ethnicities you are honored in the travel space, because there's a lot of conversations that travel suppliers are not having to make sure that people are accommodated. Airlines in particular, as they try to expand their revenue stream by making a seat smaller and and providing more seats on a plane just to generate additional dollars, they're forgetting about people who have a hard time, fitting in these tiny little seats, and then charging them extra for 2 seats if their body requires a little bit more room. So these are the conversations that I've been having on a professional level as well. And so the PSA was just kind of, that kind of came to me, and but I think it was meant.
You talked about so many different areas of bias there, and travel, being a very interesting one. And I think you really raised some valid points. And OAC is an organization, we have been vocal in the past, especially with airline industry, about the requirements for seating and whatnot. But that is another very important area. Everybody loves to travel, and we want to be comfortable when we travel. We want to feel comfortable. We want to enjoy ourselves. And so, I think the fact that you're thinking about this issue and weight bias, even in that realm, which is another area, beyond healthcare, employment, and even the interpersonal relationships, just really speaks to the breadth and the depth of weight bias and what people with obesity really are impacted by and face on a daily basis in life. I think for someone watching right now, if they're dealing with weight bias, and what would you tell them? What kind of advice would you give them?
I would tell them first that hurting people hurt people. And so if they're being shamed, if they're being criticized, that's coming from a place of poison or hurt from the person who is generating those comments. And so, try to put a face on even the people who don't know any better, who should know better. And the changes that need to be made, whether it be the travel industry or society, it happens one person at a time, one voice at a time. And I think we need to remember and remind people to put the humanity in the humans, and to always look in towards those who are subjected to unfair treatment. And also, certainly, your website, your program is doing remarkable work, and so I would certainly tell them to visit the Stop Weight Bias website for all the resources that you provide.
Well, thank you very much. I couldn't have said it better myself, Tanya. We really appreciate having you on the special segment today and welcoming you to the OAC TV studios. I hope that we have the opportunity to work with you again in the future. We're always looking to do new PSAs, and so we'll absolutely reach out to you, and we thank you very much for your time today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Wow, what a great conversation we had with Tanya today. In addition to the PSAs, the Stop Weight Bias campaign has a lot of unique components to offer. We have a very interactive and engaging website that features a weight bias quiz and a lot of information on weight bias and how to be a part of the solution. And we also have real stories from people who've experienced weight bias and are using their voice to help raise awareness of it. Additionally, brand new, we have a great section called Voices and Experiences. This new section is a space dedicated to featuring people who want to speak up and share their stories of weight bias. Today, we are very excited to have with us OAC member Faith Ann Newsom, who took part in one of these special videos and shared her experiences with weight bias, especially during childhood. Faith is the founder and president of Ocean's Lifestyle, a nonprofit dedicated to empowering young people on their weight management journey. We're going to talk with Faith in just a moment, but first, let's see what Faith has to say.
I remember my experience with bullying in middle school, what it was like to get paper balls thrown at me in class and called a whale. And that was the moment that I realized that my weight was something that people were going to not only judge me for, but expect me to judge myself for. It really bothers me that there are kids who live in this country who think they are anything less than perfect and wonderful because they were born with something or because they're struggling with something that they don't have the resources to properly address or to manage. The one thing I would want people to know about weight bias is it has profound effects. It starts with bullying in schools, but it follows you over the course of your lifetime.
As you can see, Faith's story is incredibly powerful, and we would now like to welcome Faith to the OAC studios to talk more about her journey with weight bias. Hello, Faith. Welcome to OAC TV studios. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're very excited to have you in our studio via Skype to talk about your experience with the Stop Weight Bias campaign. And everybody saw your video that just aired. In fact, we debuted that during our annual convention a few weeks ago. We shared it again today with everyone who's tuning in. You know, what was it like for you to film that vignette and to kind of relive some of those experiences?
It was surprisingly emotional. I do a lot of advocacy work like this. I talk about my story a lot, and I would say 9 times out of 10, I don't cry. And they tell you when you're recording, you know, if you feel emotional, that's normal. It's kind of our job to provoke emotion in you. And I was like, yeah, sure. I talk about this all the time. I highly doubt I'm going to get super emotional. And then I just start crying. And it was not something that I was expecting. It came kind of naturally, you know, reflecting on those experiences. And it's not something that I think about every day necessarily, weight bias in my journey. So it was super emotional to revisit some of those moments, looking back now as an adult. And, you know, you think about yourself as a child a lot differently when you're older and have the perspective. So it was very emotional.
And you talk a lot about weight bias as a child and what you experienced. And how do you think what you've dealt with in the area of weight bias throughout the course of your life, how do you feel that has impacted you?
I think it's impacted me in ways that I can't even recognize, and it's interacted with the way I operate in the world and that in ways that I operate with other people. I don't think my experience is unique. I think that's part of what's powerful about watching these stories back is that you see so many similarities. Whenever I go to OAC conventions and I talk about my childhood, that's something we all have in common, is those experiences in childhood that were stigmatizing and made us feel less than. So I think that it's just something, I say it in the video, it starts when you're in school and it follows you throughout your lifetime. So even though I'm now 23 and I'm an adult, these are still things that impact the way that I interact with other people and the way that I think about myself.
So, you talked a lot in your video about bias impacting you as a child and to the point you just made about following you into adulthood. What would you tell somebody, maybe two things, what would you tell somebody right now who's dealing with weight bias, an adult? And then what would you tell a child who might be dealing with weight bias? Like if you could answer those two questions separately, what do you think you would say?
Yeah, it's a very difficult question to answer because I think bias is so permeated in our society that there's full outblown explicit bias that people will say things to you, and then there's implicit things that very well-intentioned people say that they don't realize is bias because our whole society has just been so deeply rooted in these biased comments. So it's really difficult, but what I would say, my answer is the same for both. It's that people out there understand what you are going through and you're not alone. It feels very isolating when you're experiencing those types of things, but there's a whole community of people that have had very similar experiences. I think education is super important. People living with obesity should understand it as a disease, and that's not the case a lot of times. So I think that the education, the community, all of those are super important in dealing with bias, both as a child and as an adult. The messaging might be different, but nobody ever told me or my family, hey, this is a disease. This is why this is happening. This is how you can manage it. We were kind of left to our own devices up until I was a teenager.
Well, and I think you can see in your video the raw emotion that really comes out when you're reflecting back and you're talking about bias, and you're talking about it from your experiences as a child and into adulthood, and really all of the vignettes that are on the Stop Weight Bias website, they really focus on the different areas of bias that both you as an advocate of OAC and us as an organization that we've always tackled, such as healthcare, employment, interpersonal relationships. And I think what's so wonderful about these videos is that they really bring a real story and a real person to these areas of bias, because so often, we talk about, well, there's weight bias in employment, but what does that really look like for somebody? And I think, in your case, you just did an amazing job of showcasing that to really help somebody understand what is it like to deal with weight bias, especially from childhood into adulthood.
Yeah, and you see me, that one part where I get emotional, the question that they asked me before was, why do you do the work that you do now? And now I'm in obesity research, so I'm a second-year doctoral student, and I'm also the founder of a nonprofit specifically for adolescents living with obesity. And that question got me because, like you said, access to care is super important. And that's what made me so emotional, is these kids are getting relentlessly commented on by strangers and peers alike, and they have no resources. They don't have anywhere to go. Their parents have really nowhere to go. So that's where some of that emotion was coming up, was these issues like access to care. And that's why advocacy is so important, is if you don't have the tools and the equipment to manage your condition, you're going to start giving a lot of weight and validity to the things that other people say about you.
Faith, you talked a little bit there about the nonprofit that you're at the helm of, Oceans, and Oceans is a champion of the Stop Weight Bias campaign. Tell us a little bit more about Oceans and where people can go to learn more about it.
Yeah, so OCEAN stands for Outreach, Community Engagement, Advocacy, and Non-Discriminatory Support. And what's unique about us is we're specifically for teenagers. So ages 12 to 21 are really the primary group that we work with. And we do a lot of programming and advocacy projects related to that age group. But if people are interested in learning more, they can look us up at www.oceanslifestyles.com. And there's a bunch of different ways to contact us and connect with us on social media there.
Well, Faith, I think, again, you have just truthfully just risen above weight bias in so many ways. And the fact of what you're doing today in your work with obesity and weight bias and with Oceans is just unbelievable. And it really shows the true power and drive and dedication that you have, and we need a lot more people like you in this fight against weight bias. And so we very much appreciate your time today. Any last words for anyone tuning in that maybe watching or has seen your vignette, or even for somebody maybe that's seen your vignette playing on their TV late at night or something like that? What would you tell that person? Any last words for them?
I think my last words would have to do with action. So now that you're aware, we can fight it. And the OAC has a lot of different ways that you can take action against weight bias. So it's not enough just to know about it. Now you need to there's formal action that you can take. There's ways that you can advocate for access to care and wonderful things like that. And then there's informal things that you can do, like if someone tells a joke about people living with obesity in a casual conversation, that can be the start of a conversation that can might not change that person's mind, but you never know who in the group that you're with has dealt with obesity, or who in the Facebook page that you're in that's making all these jokes has dealt with obesity. So when you see it, call it out. And it's less so to educate the person sometimes that you're talking to, because it's hard to change minds. Sometimes it's just for the next person that sees you take that action who might be struggling with obesity, so they realize that there are people who understand.
Well, Faith, thank you for your time today. You heard it here, folks. Action. That is what we are going to need to stop weight bias. Faith, thank you so much. Thank you for your time with the Stop Weight Bias campaign. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for always being a very dedicated OAC member.
Thank you.
Bye. Wow, what a great segment so far. So many good interviews with Faith and Tanya. So much great information. You can learn more about all of those things at stopweightbias.com. Now, you may have been wondering throughout today's segment about my shirt. You may have been wondering about my shirt that says dignity and respect. For our eagle-eyed viewers, you may have even been looking at this coffee mug here and been wondering, what exactly does that say? We promised a very special announcement at the end of today's segment, and I am very, very excited to now introduce Melanie and Kelly from OAC staff, who have some very exciting news to share with everybody.
Hi, James. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. Yes, we're super excited to be here today with you. And we're even more excited to share with you the official launch of the merchandise of the Stop Weight Bias campaign. So as you can notice over here, we have different items from our shirts to tote bags and then mugs as well. Since the launch of this campaign, it has been about awareness, getting the message out there through our social media, the stories that you submit and share with us, our website, and then now this component as well to help us get the message out there and invite you to be part of the solution. But it's much more than just awareness, right, Melanie?
Oh, it absolutely is. The best part about our merchandise is when you purchase items from our store, you're making a difference. A portion of the proceeds from each purchase go immediately to work, providing the critical funding needed to raise awareness, enhance education, advocate for real change, and create a better future for all. You can also add on a donation to the total of your purchase right from your cart. The OAC will receive 100% of your added donation. Your partnership is essential for us to be able to stop weight bias once and for all.
Now, I think I actually heard a rumor that there is more that's available online for our Stop Weight Bias merchandise, and there may be some things coming down the road as well.
Absolutely.
That is right, James. So if you go to our website, stopweightbias.com, you're going to find different items, not only the ones that we've shared over here with you today, but also different designs, different sizes, colors. And we're committed to this merchandise component of our campaign. So we hope that this is not the only season line that we have.
Absolutely not. We are planning a fall line, and then beyond that, who knows where we could go from there.
Yes, but we need your help for that. So we're going to listen to what you guys want and like. So make sure to go to our website, start shopping now for yourselves as gifts, and make sure to be part of the solution to stop weight bias.
And don't forget to add on your donation to your cart.
Well, Melanie, Kelly, this is very exciting news. And, it's really, really, really exciting that the Stop Weight Bias campaign has now gone this route into merchandising to help that awareness and donation component. So head on over to stopweightbias.com, check it out. I definitely want to look at these items and make your purchase today. As we've reached the end of our segment, we, of course, want to give a big thank you to the Stop Weight Bias campaign partners, Boehringer Ingelheim, Eli Lilly and Company, Ethicon, Fujifilm, Medtronic, Novo Nordisk, and WW. Thank you for your support of the campaign, and thank you to all of the champions who support our campaign as well. We have had a great day today with these really, really insightful conversations with Faith and Tanya, talking about our Stop Weight Bias campaign vignettes and PSAs. Again, you can head on over to the website to check that out. Thank you all for joining us for this special segment, and help us be a part of the solution by visiting stopweightbias.com. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening.